So, I've been talking a lot lately about Star Trek, specifically Star Trek Starfleet Academy. Today, we're going to shift gears and go back to the MCU for a moment to talk about Avengers Doomsday, which, as you know, is going to be coming out in December of this year. So, apparently, Avengers Doomsday will be the most action-packed of all the MCU movies ever, which is not really a surprise in my view. But does more action mean a better movie? This article is from techradar.com, and the full article is linked below for you to check out. It says Avengers Doomsday's action will eclipse everything else Marvel has ever done, Insider says, and details about its first scene seem to have leaked online. Avengers Doomsday's opening sequence is reportedly going to eclipse everything else Marvel's ever done and will make people lose their effing minds. That's according to industry insider John Campea, who's whipped fans into a frenzy over what he's heard about the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies beginning. Well, color me cynical, but maybe I have epic CGI battle fatigue. Avengers Infinity War had a great battle at Wakanda. But Endgame, the final battle, the big finale in Endgame against Thanos, I never really liked that one. It never worked for me, mainly because the CGI just looks bad. It's very washed out. It's a dull, kind of brownish color palette. It all looks a bit flat and lacking visual impact. It's very desaturated. The colors don't look strong. But in recent years, MCU movies have had quite a lot of CGI and a lot more green screening, and there's been more quantity over quality in that regard. I think CGI has declined in quality in recent years. I look back to films like the Lord of the Rings trilogy from the early 2000s, and some of the big CGI battles. Back then, they just look better than a lot of modern movies now. And I think the last thing the MCU needs at present is a movie that's going to have even more CG, even more green screening. And when you look at films that are primarily CG, like the Avatar trilogy, the novelty, the impact has definitely waned. It was a big deal with the first one back in 2009, but audiences have seen lots of CG worlds now at this stage. The wow factor of heavy CG environments has sort of worn off. The article says, speaking on the latest edition of his self-titled YouTube show, Campea claimed that someone close to the film's production has teased that it not only opens with a major set piece, but will also be the most action-filled Marvel movie of all time. What this person indicated to me was the sheer volume of action is going to eclipse everything else Marvel's ever done alone, Campea teased. You never know how it's actually going to play out on screen, but what they indicated to me was the sheer amount and volume of action in this thing, when you're talking in terms of minutes on screen and scope, is going to blow away everything Marvel's ever done. Well, it definitely feels like with Avengers Doomsday, because it's such an important movie at this point in the franchise, they're definitely going for broke. They're going to pull out all the stops to make this film as big as possible, right? And I think it's fair to say more action does not necessarily mean a better movie. And it doesn't necessarily mean a bad movie, but the focus has to be on story first. You know, substance over style. First and foremost, the film has got to emphasize a story. You've got to have a good story. You've got to have something that is going to engage people beyond just visual eye candy. Now, we have suspected for some time that Doomsday is going to be a cameo fest, a film that emphasizes nostalgia and callbacks and the return of old characters in order to bring audiences back. And I think it's about using the multiverse as a plot device to get as many legacy characters on screen at the same time in order to reignite interest in the franchise. So I think when you're starting from that position, you're not starting from a point of story. You're starting from a point of spectacle. So I think Doomsday is going to have a pretty thin story, really. there's going to be some convoluted multiverse plot device, and Doctor Doom is going to be a Thanos-style supervillain. And I don't think there's going to be much of an interesting story there. It'll likely be gimmicks over story, more battles, more pew pew pew, more fights, larger amounts of CG and green screening. You know, again, probably not exactly what the MCU needs right now. What it needs is a good story. What it really needs is to be put on a very long hiatus, to be honest, because I think at this point, almost every type of superhero story, origin story, world-ending scenario has been told. Have we not seen it all at this stage? I think franchise fatigue and superhero fatigue are both a thing at this stage. Do we need many more of these kinds of movies? We've seen in other franchises, like, for example, the Star Trek Kelvin timeline movies, and I'm thinking Into Darkness here, that comes to mind. You can make a movie with a breakneck pace, tons of action, to the point where in that film, for example, in Into Darkness, it doesn't give the audience a moment to sit and think and process what they're seeing on screen. So the action keeps coming, the jokes keep coming, lots of explosions and action set pieces and lens flares. The audience is just bombarded and bamboozled with visual novelty from start to finish that they don't have a moment to sit and realize that the story has lots of things about it that don't make sense. There's major plot holes, or that the character motivations are paper thin, whatever. And when I hear that Avengers Doomsday is going to be the most action-filled movie in the MCU, I immediately think of something like Star Trek Into Darkness, because that has got to be the most action-filled Star Trek film, and I think it's among the worst. I think it's worse than Star Trek Insurrection. I think it's worse than Star Trek V or Star Trek Nemesis. Into Darkness to me is just, oh man, it's not as bad as Section 31. I'll give you that. But I find Into Darkness to be unwatchable. It's a thrill ride movie that may as well be Fast and Furious in deep space. And I say deep space because, yes, they actually did go into space in a Fast and Furious movie. But yeah, I'm fully anticipating Doomsday will be a brainless action movie akin to something like Star Trek Into Darkness. So anyway, those are my thoughts on that one, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Dave Cullen Show channel. And of course, remember to hit that notification bell to be notified of future updates on the channel as well. Please hit that like button, share the video out there. Take care, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye-bye.